Yeah, so, well, we have to see, is English okay now, or do we switch to Spanish? No.
We can continue in English. Yes, it's in English, the next panel.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure we could go on, in which language we would go on, but it's great that we have people from all over. So, you know, it's obviously a joyful occasion to see that so many professionals of the language are joining us from so many corners of the globe. And obviously Jane's presentation was so interesting in terms of what she was bringing us as an overview of what is going on now with the new approaches to teaching and thinking of English as an international language. So now we go over to our opening panel where we're going to be listening to our experts. So we're overjoyed that they are joining us today, right? And we're starting with Roxana Basso, who is, as Gabriela has just told us, the coordinator of the diploma in the pedagogy of English phonetics at UNSAM, right? Well, let me tell you, Roxana, are you here with us? Yes, it's hard to see everybody. Yeah, here she is, right? So I'll be introducing you now, right? Roxana is a teacher of English, and she has a master's, Profesora Nacional de Inglés, and she has a master's in English language teaching and applied linguistics from King's College, London. And she obtained that degree in 2002. She taught English at all levels, secondary school, and mostly as a teacher trainer, teaching English phonetics, phonology, intonation, diction, and lab practice at Profesorado, like Instituto de Enseñanza Superior en Lenguas Vivas, Instituto Superior del Profesorado de Joaquín B. González, and other profesorados in the province. And since 2010, she has been teaching pedagogy of English intonation at UNSAM. Roxana has published articles and participated in international conferences all over the world, but mostly in Argentina and England, right? So, Roxana, so are you ready to start your contribution? See, there we are. She's getting ready. Okay.
What I would like to say is that I'm not going to start now.
Okay.
I think that Graciela is going to start. So
okay. All right.
Rather than me, and then I'll go on.
All right. Perfect.
You for a lovely introduction. Yes. And so it's her introduction now.
All right. So we go over to Professor Graciela Jakulj, right? So she'll be the one to start. Sorry about this, but well, Graciela holds a diploma, a university diploma in the pedagogy of English phonology from Universidad Nacional de San Martín. And she's a specialist, a teacher specialist in higher education with a specialty of phonetics 1, phonetics 2, and diction. She's a professor of phonetics at Instituto de Enseñanza Superior en Lenguas Fernández, and she also teaches at the Universidad Tecnológica Nacional and the Instituto Superior de Formación Docente number 100, right? She also teaches postgraduate courses and is a researcher at UNSAM, and she has been presenter at many conferences, and she also taught at the Colegio Nacional de Buenos Aires, well, among the many things she's done. So now, Graciela, it's a joyful occasion to be able to introduce you. So now we are all ears. Graciela, let's see, it's hard to see everybody on this screen.
Thank you very much, Paula, right, okay. Okay. Just 1 second. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. So, the screen is done. Okay. Okay. I'm Graciela Jakulj, and I'm a lecturer at Universidad of San Martin. I'm going to introduce the topic that Roxana and me are going to develop today, right? Well, the title is Intonation Subsystems, an instance of close negation in English, Spanish, and Italian. In written text, contrast sentences with the same strings of wording and different syntax may prove to be very difficult to understand. In oral text, intonation helps to disentangle the interpretation. This issue in discourse concerns the ambiguity of the negative scope of dependency in English. Definition of scope is that portion or part of a particular sentence as being affected by an operator such as quantifier or negative. Apart from English, two closely related Romance languages will be included, Spanish and Italian. Okay, so let's see. Okay, sorry. Okay. English intonation is felt to be intangible to students. I'm sorry because I haven't, the video is off. Sorry. Okay, sorry. English intonation is felt to be intangible to students when a new teaching point is exhibited in the classroom. The knowledge and practice have guided us to compare English suprasegmentals with Spanish, other languages, and dialects spoken by students and their families. Okay, let me see. Okay, if I can pause it. What's the problem? Yeah, no, I can't. So it's yeah. So just a minute. So okay, so sorry. I can't, yeah. Yeah, no. Just a minute, please. Yeah, let's see now, because there was a problem with the sharing. No, that's because to go back, I go back. Sorry. Yes. No, it's this one. This one is this. No, like see is what follows it. Then, yeah. Okay, very sorry about the delay. Sorry, really. This thought. Let's see what the hell is going on now. Okay, let's see. Okay, now. Okay, with it. What? Can't see it properly. So let's see if now it's a problem. What's it? Okay, to show. Well, can't. It's three. It's three. Oh, sorry. So it's four. But it's all. Very sorry indeed. To start our research, we review some of the tools in the negative scope of subordination in English. The bibliography consulted is mostly British because in this country, students are taught a certain British accent or so we're going to examine certain functions of the falling rising contour, which is essential for our work. Okay, so, okay, Brazil determined that it is better to replace the traditional unified concepts of the values of the high fall, low fall, etc., with two discrete subsystems, pitch, level, and tone. He depicts two different orientations in reading aloud. We just introduced this topic because the examples of the three languages we are going to speak about are mostly expressed in a direct orientation. Okay. So, the examples have been labeled as A and B versions in English, Spanish and Italian. The A versions in English exhibit two tone units, instances of unmarked tonality, which would be a default tonality of the two clauses, which signal new information with a narrow scope of the clause of reason. Most B versions are cases of marked tonality, and according to Halliday, the first clause announces shared information. The second one shows wide scope. Length plays an important role here because both clauses must be sufficiently short for them to constitute one tone unit, right? Okay. Let me see now. I'm going to go through the next about length and text. Well. So, in the versions, the scope of negation serves to mark portions of the text negated. Minimal scope is over the verbs visit and go, alongside their arguments in the superordinate clause. Lee postulates that the fall is required to close the second clause. A rise fall could be present in a more emphatic way, in a more emphatic rendering, right? So that's what the next. Okay, no, not this one yet. Well, no, it's okay. I can say that when a speaker about the sentences on the screen, we got 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and so on, right? So we can say that when a speaker in the sentences in which the order of structures has been reversed for some reason, for emphasis whatsoever, reversing, when the speaker reverses the order of clauses, the fall is mandatory in the independent clause owing to its final position. The reversal adjunct, because it was O, you can see on the screen. The second example, because there was O, right, brings into focus information on the cause. The phenomenon is generally called fronting in syntactic terms, topicalization in discursive terminology, and thematization in stemics. This is in the A versions. The B versions, no fronting is, in the B versions, no fronting is possible as the two clauses constitute an intonation phrase. With reference to tone, Lee explicates that in the 1B and 2B, normally a full rise or rise is produced at the end of each tone loop. In the 2B versions, the speaker performs the action of visiting the doctor or going to France. In 1B, he does pay a visit, but because of some unspecified reason, not that. The negation illustrates that only the subordinate clause is under scope. Only Lee never uses this terminology. Thus, meaning is affected through the tonality system of two clauses within one tone unit in what we call the extended scope of the negative. All A versions in the three languages belong to a minimal negative scope, whereas the B counterparts bear extended negative scope. As regards to the aims of this study, I can say that we compare three intonation systems of tonality, tonicity, and tone, plus nuclear pitch level, and some independent and negative clauses of reason in English River Plate, Spanish, and Italian. A second goal is to discuss the scope of negation of these clauses. To exhibit a more complete picture of our aim, we accompany the phonological and phonetic justification of the A and B versions with the reports from the acoustic spectrograms. Okay, now Roxana is going to continue with the talk, and thank you very much.
So thank you, Graciela. Now let's see if Roxana, is everything okay? Are you there? See. Okay, well, while they get settled, let's see who, there are people from all over Argentina and the world. So maybe as we wait for them to get the presentation going, you can write in the chat where you're joining us from.
Hello. Now I can see that there's something wrong about this. I mean, it's technology, yes. Quiero ir a la diapositiva 12.
Okay, we know that technology plays these tricks on us all the time, right? But well, let's keep our fingers crossed that the gods of technology will smile upon us today, right? Let's see. Just a few minutes. Here, people. Leopoldo from General Roca, of course, Universidad Nacional del Comahue. Yeah, welcome. Right, so I can see someone, Cecilia Semborain, how are you, from Patagonia? All right, there we are. So are we all set, Rox?
And the whole presentation. So going on with what Graciela said, so what is it that we are discussing? Yes, just to recap, because of these problems with technology. So what we have been doing is we have been studying sentences which are which have the same string of words, the same wording. Yes, so if you read them, apparently they may have the same meaning, but that is not so. So when you speak, speech disambiguates, and it disambiguates that through intonation mainly. And going back to what Jane said, yes, in this study, we focused on the 3 T's that she mentioned, which were, in fact, Halliday's contribution. He talks about tonality, chunking speech into different units for people to understand. I mean, you provide a code and then people decode. That gives you time to decode, and that would be tonality. Then telling people what is important about the message, and so there would be nucleus placement that he calls tonicity, and then we focused on intonation. So here you've got these 2 strings of words, and we have studied these different systems, and perhaps we have added something else, yes? And as we said, as Graciela said at the very beginning, the one person who started talking about this was Lee. And they were very interesting that back in 1960, right? And then Crystal, toda la pantalla, ¿no es cierto? Can you see the whole screen? Yeah, that is to say, oh, now we have, this has left us, now we have to go a la número 3, creo, o a la número 2, a la número 2. Okay, yes, but we want the presentation. Well, it's a bit difficult. Let's go on with this. It's fun, isn't this? Okay, so then we talked about, we studied what Crystal said, and he was worried about grammar, and he tried to see the link between intonation and grammar.
Hola.
Y me parece que quiero corregir todo para, no se ve toda la pantalla, no podemos ver, we can't see the whole, see the whole screen, something there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that was one of the problems, the lack of systematicity, yes, between intonation and grammar. And when he talks about this, he says that there are tone contrasts, yes, and between falls and fall rises, but he doesn't explain what the contrast is about. He just identifies the difficulty, and that's it. So, for example, there are sentences like, I'm not going because you say so. That would be a fall rise, which is a tiny thing over there. I don't know if you can see it. And then I'm not going because you say so. Now, what's the meaning of that? He does not explain. Of course, we're going to explore this. Yes. Yeah. Then we studied Cooper Cullen, 1985, and she had this particular interest in the system of tonality. In fact, what we have to say is that the whole study began because we were worried about tonality. Yes, we thought that there was something strange we could not fathom, we could not understand. And this is how we started. Yes, tonality was the very first aim. Then we discovered other things. So in her examples, the A versions are paratactic. The A versions, let's see, he didn't go to Holland because his Dutch was weak. Yes. And she marks these tonality by means of these bars. And he didn't go to Holland because his Dutch was weak. That was one chunk, wide. And what matters here is that she, interestingly, she used uppercase for nucleus placement. So that would be tonicity. Yes, marked tonicity. What is marked tonicity? The nucleus is not on the last lexical item, but it is on a lexical item before. Yes? And that was her. But she did not say much about the difference of tone. Yes? In the next slide, we can see Cruttenden. Well, Cruttenden has quite a number of things here. To begin with, he does not mark tone unit boundaries. Okay? For example, if you see, she didn't go to the conference because she needed a holiday. Yes, that one has no mark at all, no boundary. He's not interested in tonality. So it seems that he's interested in tone and scope. So what you see there in red, she didn't go to the conference because she needed a holiday. Yes, the first one with the fall. That's the scope of the first example. And in the second one, the scope is smaller. So just standing for the negative. So not because she needed a holiday, and that is produced on a full rise. So that's all he's interested in. He's not discussing either tonality or tonicity at all. So to recap and go back to what Lee said, yes, Lee said that if you use the fall, the task was carried out. And we're talking here about B sentences, yes, where there's one chunk. And if you compare Cruttenden and Lee, then they're both saying the same thing. But Lee says that you can use a rise, which Cruttenden does not mention at all. If we analyze Brazel, Brazel thinks that both the full rise and the rise are similar, and he says that if they both mean the same, and so there's common ground. For example, if you analyze Cruttenden somewhere else, Cruttenden would tell you that a rise sounds formal, different from the full rise. Perhaps he means to say that British people use more rises than full rises. I don't know really. I don't know if this is so. And the rises, in fact, there are more rises in American English. There are some other things that we would have to say about American English. For example, we would speak about something not mentioned here, which is the high rising terminal. Yes. For example, are you happy? That sort of thing. So, you would say something like, she didn't go to the conference because she needed a holiday. That, of course, I'm exaggerating. I'm sorry about that. That would be a high rising terminal. So, so perhaps there would be more rises than full rises because the Americans use more rises than full rises, I think. Or perhaps the kind of full rise that they use is different, a different pattern. Yes, then we're going to talk about that a kind of stylized full rise. Yes. So let's see. Well, there's something, so I present the same example again. She didn't go to the conference because she needed a holiday. What can we say about that? First of all, there's no boundary, yes? But here we would have to say something about nuclear pitch level, which Brazil calls termination, or some other authors may just call key. Or for Brazil, this is on the nuclear syllable or tonic syllable, this would be termination. So if there were a low fall, with something which Crittenden does not mention, if there were a low fall, the action, that would mean that the action was not carried out, and that was probably the end of the topic. Not the end of the conversation, the end of the topic. I don't want to go on with this. Yes, I'm tired. So how would I say that? She didn't go to the conference because she needed a holiday. And don't ask me. I don't want to go on talking about this. Maybe this is gossip or whatever. So full stop. Let's talk about something else. Yes, let's talk about clothes or whatever. So that is the effect, yes, of the pitch level, yes. But if this pitch level is high or mid, and so we could say that this is a mid fall or a high fall, we would say that the deed was carried out. So something different from what they normally, phonologists say. They tell you that you could only use a full rise. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to read it out loud. She didn't go to the conference because she needed a holiday. That's high fall. What's the feeling you have? You know, I'm going to go on speaking. And what I'm telling you is that she didn't go. She didn't go to the conference because she needed a holiday. So that means she didn't go. Yes? But if you say, let's take the other B example, they are B because there's one chunk apparently, yes? So a tone unit that has the two clauses, yes? So in the other case, she didn't go to the conference because she needed a holiday. That is the full rise. The tiny thing that I hope you can see over there, the full rise. So she didn't go to the conference because she needed a holiday, where the negative not is next to because she needed a holiday. So this obviously means what I said before, this has an affirmative meaning. She did go to the conference, but there was probably another reason. So this is what Crittenden calls the special use of the full rise. And he says that there's reservation. And here I learned what reservation means. Because, you know, if we read O'Connor and Arnold, they tell you, okay, the full rise used for the full reservation and other phonology of tench, for example, etc. Wells, I don't remember how many of them. They tell you reservation, but this to me does not mean anything. So this is the meaning of reservation. There's no interest to continue talking. So she didn't go to the conference because she needed a holiday. Full stop. Implicit, this information, something there left unsaid. There's an implication and of the reservation type. There's something else we can say. We think that the mid and high endpoints of the full rise and also a mid narrow fall show the speaker's intention to go on. So this is a summary of what I have just said. So now let's see what we can see in the next slide. So Crittenden, here we are, yes, the stylized full rise. In a different section of the book, he talks about the stylized full rise, where he says that this full rise has like a sequence of two levels. One level that is higher than the other one, and the other one is lower. And as in calling intonation, this is what he says. When you say Mary, so Mary, so there are 2 levels, yes? And this is what Crittenden says, this is a full rise, but a stylized one. Why? Because you can't hear a contour that goes down and then goes up as we are used to hearing, yeah? So it's just 2 levels. Oh, there may be a teasing function of the stylized full rise. Suppose I do something, it may also be warning, but suppose I do something and you may say something like, you fall, yeah, meaning be careful, it's warning, but they may be teasing me, okay? And we have also, the interesting thing is that we have found a stylized full rise in one of the B versions, which he does not mention at all. So there may be implicit or explicit implications. So in the example, which I now can't recall, well, but I'm going to invent it. I didn't do it because I was tired. Yes, in that one, tired on our fully fledged full rise, beautiful full rise, what you learned at teacher training college. Instead of saying that, you would hear something like, I didn't do that. I didn't do it because I was tired, tired, Mary. That would be this stylized full rise. So this is something new he does not mention and which we have discovered. So the next, this one. Okay, now we pass on to tench. Yes, so we go on analyzing these 2 versions, the A and B versions. Remember that the A version has 2 chunks, and that means that you didn't do it. I didn't do it, chunk, maybe pause or not. I didn't do it. Here there's a rise. That could be I didn't do it for rise, or I didn't do it level, or I didn't do it fall. Yes, as Lee says, I didn't do it because I was tired, fall. End of the thing. So there are 2 chunks, and this means that if we talk about scope of the negative just is next to the first verb, and it means no, she didn't do it. I didn't do it, that means no, she didn't do it. Chunk, because she was tired, meaning to say she didn't do it. Whereas I didn't do it because I was tired means that I did do it. Okay, this is what we are discussing, A and B. And A examples are what we all know. So this is what we have called the default version. Yes, I didn't do it because I was tired. In Spanish, because this is what most of us speak, no lo hice porque estaba cansado, o no lo hice porque estaba cansado. Whatever the intonation, but there are 2 tone units. That is the A version, and it's a default one. We're not interested in discussing that at all. We're interested in discussing the B versions. Well, there's one slight difference towards the end. There's surprise, surprise, of course. And tench, now tench, of course, he deals with 3 systems, tonality, tonicity, and tone. And he says that a change in tonality indicates a difference in syntax related to negative domain or scope. So he does not use the word scope, the scope of the negative, but he uses the word domain. This is something that has to do with different theories, okay? But it's mainly the same thing. So I didn't do it. The domain of the negative is I didn't do it because I was tired. It's just as far as this goes, as far as the end of the first clause. Yes, that would be an A sentence, right? The negative circumstantial of reason, for example, as you can see in the example below, because of the money. Yes, for example, he didn't agree because of money. So as you can see, we're not interested, and now I'm discussing tonicity, we're not interested in tones. So the interesting thing is that we're discussing clauses all the time, but you can also have something smaller than a clause. You can have a phrase or a syntagm if you use vocabulary that has to do with discourse. Yes, so he didn't agree because of the money. because of money, that would be the syntagm, the phrase, yes, not a clause. And you can also find that that was the A version where you didn't do that, or they didn't agree. It's not just a question of doing. Sometimes it's a question of speaking, yeah, if there's time for that, yeah. And he didn't agree because of the money. Okay, so that is again syntagm, yes. So there's a clause and a syntagm. So there's one clause, and this, because of the money, is a circumstantial of reason. Then there are two other interesting examples. I didn't go so that I could get promotion. So if you use this word, so this is what we think, yes, is you are talking about purpose. And what do you mean by purpose? This is the intent to accomplish something. So I didn't go so that I could get promotion. Yes. The idea is
Alejandro de Andrés.
Es el de
Papá.
Sorry.
People, maybe some of you have to turn off your mics if you're around other people, please. Thanks.
Lovely to hear people, yes, coming to a lecture and to the university. Lovely, thank you. Hello, everybody, again. So going back to the 2A example, I didn't go so that I could get promotion. Again, so as I said, there's purpose. Yes, we don't know if this was carried out. There's an intention to accomplish something. But in 2B, I didn't go so that I could get promotion. There's results. So there's intention and results. So the thing is that, yes, the action or whatever, the intention, or yeah, that was affirmative. I mean, it was all right. There's an affirmative function. So I didn't go so that I could get promotion, but probably there was something else, but probably there were good prospects there. We're not told, yes. The thing is that these phoneticians, the phonologists, give you examples of sentences, of strings of words, and there's no context. So how can we get the context? How can we get the different nuances of meaning? I mean, we're just speculating, and you may agree or disagree, right? So let's go to the next slide. So Tench says, for example, here, and here we're not talking about A and B examples, we're talking about 2B examples, one wide sentence with two clauses, right? By the way, that would be marked tonality, yes? Halliday would say that if there are two clauses in one chunk, that is marked tonality. If there's one clause in one chunk, in one tone unit, that is unmarked tonality. That would be the A version, yes, that we've seen. So John doesn't drink because he's unhappy. There's one tone unit, marked tonality. There's a fall, and the meaning is negative. John doesn't drink because he's unhappy. So he doesn't drink. He doesn't drink at all. Yes. So this is similar to the A examples that we had where there were two chunks. Yes. So notice this, it's not that easy to tell. Or maybe there are other details there that are not mentioned and which need to be mentioned. That's why we're writing here. We're writing about this, and we're telling you what we've been thinking of, yes? In the other example, John doesn't drink because he's unhappy on a full rise. This has affirmative meaning, as said before. Yes, this is positive thing. But he doesn't drink because he's unhappy. So does he drink? Yes, he does drink. But there's something there that we don't have. Yes, we would have to listen in. We would just to see what this is all about. So there's something else we want to say. Tent is interested in tonicity. Apparently, in most of the examples, there's neutral tonicity. Yeah, because they're very short sentences. We don't have, as I said, the full context. So in most cases, the nucleus is at the end of, it's on a content word at the very end. Oh yes, you would say that you are following the rule, but it's not that easy. If you go back to what we said about Cooper Coolen, yes, she didn't go to France because she didn't, or he didn't go to France because his French was poor, or you could have said because of his French, going back to the example of the circumstantial of reason. Yes, just a phrase. He didn't go to France. He didn't go to France because of his French. Yes, of his French, and that would be it. That meaning to say that his French was poor. If you wanted to state that in two clauses, you would have said he didn't go to France because his French was poor. But here I said because his French was poor, the nucleus is poor. In fact, this is wrong. As she very well wrote, as you saw the uppercase letters there, she didn't go to France because her French was poor. So the nucleus was French. It means because of her French. And what would you think? What would the implication be there? That this person's French was poor. So poor is information that you don't need. This is information, even in the text, this is information that you can think of because you belong to a certain culture. And you know that this means that, okay, the person, I understand, the person didn't go because the person can't speak much French or can't speak French at all. So Tench is interested in, when he talks about the three T's, the three tonality, tonicity, and tone, he's interested in tonicity. And he doesn't say much here, yes, but as we said, we need contrast, we need a context. So we need context. So let's move on to the next, the next scholar, Hirschberg, yes? I think this is she, right? Or you could say she, I mean, there's no problem. So she presents sentences with differing tonality, yes? This is the problem we know, like as in the A versions or B versions, yes? But she says something strange. This goes against what we've been discussing, yes? For example, Bill doesn't drink because he's unhappy. So this may be interpreted as possessing wide scope, she says. The whole sentence, the two chunks, wide scope, but only on rare occasions. Now, if this were the case, an absence of silence might not be indicative of a lack of boundary in the A version. So we did not fathom, we did not imagine what she was thinking of, or what kind of instrumental analysis, if any, she used. So if this is what her auditory perception told her, perhaps, yes, there was something like this, but we're not very sure. Yeah, when people write books, and here we're dealing with something that has to do with speech, yeah, I think that we need to have the audios, yes, of all this information, because unless you do that, you cannot speak much. So she says here in the A versions, yes, you may also have wide, you may have, of course, narrow scope. This is the point we are discussing in all 8 versions, I would say that this is default. I mean, the usual thing, the normal thing, right? But surprisingly, she says there may be wide scope. How come? We don't know. Now, we have imagined, you know, because we can begin to imagine things, yes. You could think of, I don't know, it could be in Disney World now, yes. So if in this version, there were a level tone, which perhaps she did not perceive, yes, and observed and measured in acoustic terms, perhaps there would be an A version. So I don't know how she could do something like this, or how she could come to that conclusion. Whereas in B, there's another surprise for you, let me tell you. Bill doesn't drink because he's unhappy. So there's a wide tone unit, the 2 clauses in one chunk, yes. But she says that this can be either wide or narrow scope. Again, we don't understand this. And she says that, of course, context disambiguates meaning. Yes, this is what she's saying, and this is what I said a moment ago. And yes, of course, we need context to be able to account for all this. So she adds that the setting may serve to disambiguate hidden nuances of meaning. Setting, context. And she says, I'm quoting now, speakers sometimes produce intonational phrases that do not obey these likelihoods. So interesting. Well, now we move on to our comparison with Spanish and Italian. You know that we started thinking about, or let's say, we have studied this in books that have to do with intonation, yes? And there was a moment when we realized that perhaps in Spanish it was something similar. Yeah, so we started studying what happened in Spanish. And of course, yes, in English, there's lots of literature on this. And we believe, perhaps there isn't, and we believe there isn't much literature on this in Spanish, yes? So what we would say, yes, that there's an A and a B version as in English. Yes, the A version would be default, great. And there would be a white version. For example, he didn't do it because he was tired. He didn't do it because he was tired, full stop. Yeah. And the thing is that, yes, he did that. He carried out the action. But we can go on and say, but because he was angry. Yeah. This is what we would say, yeah, but in Spanish we would say, no lo hizo porque estaba cansado, sino porque estaba enojado. Sorry, I didn't write it there, yes, because I think it's easier to understand, maybe, I don't know, our language. No lo hizo porque estaba cansado, tired, cansado, sino que lo hizo porque estaba enojado, okay? So the word tired would bear a rise or fall in Spanish, yes, o sea, cansado, yes, in a direct style. Here, we are having Brazil's friend. We are asking Brazil to come to us and help us. He speaks of 2 ways of speaking. A direct way, like this one, where I'm making an effort to communicate. Normally, we all speak like that. Normally, all of us do that. Yes, unless you've got some kind of disability, right? And there's also an oblique orientation, an oblique way of speaking, an indirect way of speaking, where you use level tones, for example, in the first chunk, and then falls to conclude, yes? So here, there's a comparison between the sentences in Spanish and English. Yes, there's unmarked tonality in all A versions with negative meaning, and the tone in the first clause is incomplete, as I said. And in the second clause, there's a fall or a rise fall. That is a more emphatic version. Yes, no lo hizo porque estaba cansado. He didn't do it. Okay, that would be a rise. He didn't do it because he was tired. No lo hizo porque estaba cansado. In English, you would say the same thing. He didn't do it because he was tired. And then, no lo hizo porque estaba cansado. He didn't do it because he was tired. Okay. Something else that Graciela mentioned was that if we are dealing with the A examples, what we can do is reverse the order of the clauses, yes? Because these are A versions, there are two chunks. So, because he was tired, he didn't do it. Porque estaba cansado, no lo hizo. Okay, and this shows topicalization. So, I don't want to leave the information, important information for the very end. I want to place it at the beginning. And as this is not the usual thing, yes, I call your attention and I'm telling you, I'm over here. Because he was tired, he didn't do it. That's topicalization, right? Okay, let's go to... what we want to say is that the use of a full rise is infrequent in this particular type of sentences. I'm not saying that you cannot use a full rise in Spanish, but in general, we haven't got that in our corpus, right? Perhaps it's possible, but that's something we don't have. So, and then there may be a pause after hizo. No lo hizo porque estaba cansado. Yeah, there are more pauses perhaps in Spanish than in English, yeah? But we're equally having an A version of the string of words. No lo hizo porque estaba cansado. He didn't do it because he was tired. You know that the chunk, the boundary there, does not necessarily mean that there's a pause. It means that there are two tones. No lo hizo porque estaba cansado. So I didn't stop, but there are two tones. That means that there are two chunks, and therefore that's the A version. Yeah. Now, B versions in Spanish, there's no clause reversal as we have seen in English. No lo hizo porque estaba cansado. So there may be, the tone that says, no lo hizo porque estaba cansado. This is important. Or no lo hizo porque estaba cansado. That's the rise fall version, yes? Very interesting, yes? As there's a negation, it seems that we want to use the fall so that it sounds more complete, yes? And there may be a but, sino, so that would be a longer version. No lo hizo porque estaba cansado, okay? No lo hizo porque estaba cansado, sino porque estaba enojado. So when you say that, sino porque estaba enojado, that is additional information. That is the adversative sino, but. Another example, he didn't do it because he was tired, but because he was angry. Or no lo hizo porque estaba cansado, a level. And here you do need the adversative but. No lo hizo porque estaba cansado, sino porque estaba enojado. So the absence of pitch movement in the second clause of all the B versions in Spanish is very important. We're not worried about this second clause. In fact, the first bit is what we call main clause, and the second one is dependent or subordinate, right? So, but we mean we mean to say that, yes, the person did do that because this is a be version, right? So although it seems that we are not worried about meaning here, yeah, perhaps we're more like emphatic, you know, we use our hands or whatever. So meaning is not important. The negative is important, yes, probably pitch, high pitch or whatever, depending on the speaker, yeah, but that's not necessary, yes. And so tonicity of the main verb is the important thing. Yes, the tonicity of the main verb, he no lo hizo, no lo hizo. That is what is interesting, irrespective of its shared information. Yes, we're not following what the English scholars tell us. So tonicity also marks the beginning of the extended negative scope. This is what we do in Spanish, in contrast to English. And this displays or signals right end focusing. Well, as I said, yes, if we use but, there's oblique or orientation when there's a level tone and a but, pero. No lo hizo porque estaba cansado, 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 sino porque whatever. So if there's oblique orientation, as I said before, there may be communication problems, as for example, as when somebody has an autistic, suffers from an autistic spectrum, or it's also used when people use their mobile phones. Voy el martes, espérame con un café, or whatever. You see, everything is level. So he didn't do it because he was tired. He didn't do it because he was tired, but because he was angry. So he didn't do it because he was tired. He didn't do it because he was tired, but because he was angry. And this would be professionals, lawyers, doctors, engineers. This is a voice where they don't want to commit themselves. They want to speak in a more dispassionate manner. They want to sound objective. So they use lots of level tones. And of course, we know that teachers cannot talk like that because the audience disappears, and it's goodbye. Yes, but we try to speak in a different way. Well, in our comparison between Italian and Spanish, what we have discovered is that they are similar. The intonation here is similar. The tonality is similar. The tonicity is similar. Yes. And so you would say, no lo dije porque estaba cansada. No l'ho detto perché ero stanca. Pardon my Italian, it's not that good. There are some experts here who speak Italian very well. No lo dije porque estaba cansada. No l'ho detto perché ero stanca. Okay, so we've got the two clauses in one chunk. These are be versions, as in Spanish. Yes, the important thing is that the first verb, the one that is negated, carries the tone, and yeah, we can use a fall, a rise, or a level if something else goes on. Yes, so Spanish and Italian, the be version versions have similar strings of words without altering their meanings. Tonicity is marked and fixed in the verb of the independent clause in the two Romance languages, whereas in English, although tonicity may be either neutral or marked, the nucleus is always located in the first clause. Yes, very good. Well, now, of course, when we went on studying this, we said, okay, let's do something about Spanish. And we asked our students from the University of San Martin, the ones who were studying the didactics of the teaching of phonology and phonetics. You know, we've got a diploma here. And we asked our students, of course, they're all native speakers of Spanish, to say aloud a string of words which we wrote on the blackboard. But of course, this was a real test. Yes, we were very careful with this. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you, I'm going to read a little bit of this. So we invited a group of 29 Argentine students whose ages were between 23 and 52, and their average age was 29.4. And they took part in our experiment. The participants included 25 women and 4 men. Well, no comment. And one of these persons was blind. Perhaps this was unfair, but anyway, it was interesting. Yes, most of them lived in the province of Buenos Aires and very few in the city of Buenos Aires itself. The speakers were expected to perform a task individually. They were required to read a token, that is to say the sentence, the B sentence, aloud in Spanish, while thinking that that the person had performed the action. We did not give them the A versions. We were not interested in that because that is the usual thing, the normal thing. So we just focused on the B versions, yes? So what they read was, no lo hizo porque estaba cansada o cansado, whatever, yes? And because in Spanish there's gender, and that's not important for our study, yes? The information can be maybe negligible. So no punctuation was used for the students to have no cue what to say. We didn't give much information. They were free to interpret whatever they wanted to think, yes? And that was the chief area of our concern. So it was written and they had to read it aloud. Of course, the rest of the class were somewhere else. They didn't hear what they were saying, and they would be not allowed to comment anything. Yes, when they finished off, they would go somewhere else, so there would be no comments on what they had said. So the result of the test, I'm going to read it now. As a result, we were able to observe that 27 out of 29 students produced the B version satisfactorily in Spanish. It was interesting to hear the blind participant speaking loudly. He made an enormous effort to cooperate. He wanted to help us, right? Even if apparently he failed to comprehend the meaning of the B version. Now I'm going to tell you why. The words had been read aloud to him in broken English, perhaps, you know, as when you speak like a robot. No lo hice porque, you know, that kind of thing. He was not able to read. He's not able to read at all. So it had been too demanding a task for him to recollect all the words and say them aloud naturally. So that was a failure, but it was interesting because we should have tried something else. I mean, another individual who had been a weak student throughout the semester was not able to complete the task successfully. We think we did not understand the rubrics. So various reasons came to mind when attempting to evaluate his failure. He may not have been able to comprehend the rubrics, may have been so stressed that he was unable to give an adequate rendering. Maybe he was afraid of the teachers who were there, who knows? Or when reading the sentence aloud in one piece, he may not have been able to process the information properly. So B versions are complex structures that require proven listening and production skills, entailing the presence of students endowed with additional cognitive maturity that sometimes may not surface. And this seemed to be the case. So this is interesting here, because if we think in terms of our students and international exams and listening activities, as Jane said, yes, this would be a difficult task. Or if they had to listen to this, would they understand what the speakers are saying, the intended meaning? Apparently he's saying no, but he's in fact saying yes, he did that, yes? Well, now the instrumental analysis very quickly, because the expert here, Alejandro Renato, I hope he's here with us, yes, was in charge of doing this. So we have set out to describe in acoustic terms only the 3 B versions in English, Spanish, and Italian, yes. Who did that? Yes, there was a 40-year-old female present who recorded the 3 utterances. She's a native speaker of Spanish, a teacher of English, and can speak Italian, not that well. So we have produced prototypical target sentences. They in a lab, yeah, it was not a natural thing, yeah. And the pragmatic meaning of these can be understood by native speakers, of course. The MP3 audio files contain the following utterances. I didn't say it because I was tired. No lo dije porque estaba cansada. No lo he detto porque ero stanca. And we've got the boring, yes, sound, the spectrograms. So this is no lo, oh, sorry. Sorry, yeah. No, just wait a tick. First, we've got something else. So there was a Pratt analysis of the 3 broad spectrograms. Yes, that it showed there was in all cases B versions. Yes, there was only 1 tone unit. Yes, in English, Spanish, and Italian. The first clauses, for example, in Spanish and Italian, no lo dije, no lo detto, have more energy, and the pitch level is higher than that of the clauses introduced by por qué. Thus, a nuclear accent starred HL, so that is a fall, observed, and the tonal peak left shifts, okay, to the beginning of the syllable. Yes, this is interesting. Yes. This information, though, the important big thing, loud thing, yes, is at the very beginning of the syllable. You know that sometimes this can be delayed. No, this is both in English and, sorry, in Italian and Spanish. You find that at the very beginning. And then in the second clause, there's nothing, okay? Nothing. Okay, in English, a different intonation pattern surfaces is seen. A full rise is the last prominence in the second clause. So that's what you have to do. You have to listen to the whole chunk to be able to understand, and the tone, to be able to understand what this means. Whereas in Italian and Spanish, you know, you get that information at the very beginning. Well, I think that you can take a look at this is the first one is, let's see, I cannot see this very well. The first one is written in Spanish. Yes, and you can see, I don't know if you know, I cannot mark this, okay. You can see what happens on dije, yes? The beginning of dije, yes? You can see that raising going down. No lo dije porque estaba cansada. Same thing for Italian. No l'ho detto perché ero stanca. Right? And now in English, I didn't say it because I was tired. You can see that tired has this lovely full rise, beautifully performed. As I said, this was a prototype, yeah, not natural, but very well, you can hear that very well. Well, conclusions. I'm going to read this. So the string of words that seem to be fairly basic structures, yes, can present surprisingly difficulties in interpretation. Yes, when talking about phonology and semantics. Due to their inadequate mental representations, our students may fail to read aloud these sentences with proper prosodic clues. I mean, our students of English, yes, we are comparing, yes, Spanish and English, basically. And this may be very difficult for them. We identify that one of these pairs in Spanish and Italian oh yes, because as I said, we were worried about what was written and whether you could decode the meaning of that to be able to produce it properly, right? So there were different lines of inquiry that we thought in terms of scope, tonality, tonicity, and tone, and also nuclear pitch, level, height. So if we talk about the type of Spanish understudy, that was River Plate Spanish, yes, with some, and there were some comments on Italian. Context is not depicted, as we said, and so this is a problem. We would need to have something more natural, yes, when they discuss all this. So in broad terms, A versions are default examples, as you know. Most A and B versions are instances of direct orientation, which I think is quite clear, unless you've got some kind of interest, if you use a professional voice, yes, you may use level tones in the first clause, yes. And these, so if there are falls, for rises, etc., so these are instances of direct orientation or manner of speaking. And if there are level tones, this is quite indirect, as some people with some kind of impairment may show when they speak. All A versions in English and Spanish may shift their clauses of reason to front position. Yes, just the A versions, not the B versions, both in English and Spanish. We don't know anything about Italian, yes, on this matter. Most of the linguists quoted in this chapter have highlighted tonality, yes, most of them, although some of them have not dealt with this. For example, Crittenden, as I said, did not mark the boundaries. He just talked about he discussed other matters, tones and scope. We have discussed the what the A version means. The action did not take place. The B version, the action did take place. That's why it's so difficult to understand. If there's wide scope, this is what we are discussing. It is marked tonicity that presents dramatic effects in Spanish and Italian B versions. So the nucleus is frequently placed on the lexical verb accompanying the negative in the first clause, although the denial has not yet been completed. The tonicity of these Romance languages differentiates itself from nucleus allocation in English, where the tonic is assigned to a lexical element in the second clause, the dependent one. Strikingly, the affirmative negatives meaning of the B versions in the three languages remain unchanged, despite the different nuclei locations in them. Yes, this is very important. Meaning does not change. We're still saying, yeah, the person carried out the action. And this is not connected to tonicity in Spanish and Italian. What completes the whole scenario is the presence of pitch in dual representation as tone and pitch level, not mentioned height, not mentioned by these scholars. this is perhaps our contribution, and here we are following Brazil, yes. As to the movements down from in the English and Spanish A versions, different tones may be uttered in the first clauses, namely non-falls or falls. In Spanish, falls may be followed by unfilled silence after the main verb, of course in English as well, but this is not the usual thing in English, right? The absence of pitch movement in the second clause of all the B versions in Spanish and Italian is what renders them exceptional. A non-conclusive level term may also appear in the superordinate clause, wide clause, meaning the two clauses, yes, of the wide tone units in the Romance languages, or in the dependent clause in English. In these cases, the second tone unit beginning with the adversative conjunction sino in Spanish, yes, but in English, or perché in Italian, will generally bear a fall to signal the end of the idea. Next. And to return to the topic of the full rise, a stylized full rise is another option in both contours, and this was not mentioned by any of the scholars. This is perhaps our contribution. So instead of having a full, perfect full rise, you can have these two level tones that you're finding: calling, intonation, hello, that one, or saying hello also, not so calling. As stated in the previous paragraph, and the previous examples, several linguists present the full rise as a favored prosodic contour in the B versions, probably in Southern British English, although it may not always be adopted in the speech of young or adult speakers. Here, we don't agree. So it's not a question of using a full rise all the time. No, there may be other tones. For example, a rise. Yes, there's a development in the language. There's a change. Language is alive. So this line of inquiry this is a line of inquiry not pursued, which may remain open for research. We have to go on with this, right? The discussion of the nuclear mid-high pitch heights of the end points of full rises, all rises, the end, yes, points of the full rises, plus mid or high narrow falls is particularly germane, important to our topic, since all B versions, we believe, we think that they have an affirmative sentence meaning, right? So no matter whether that is a full rise, a rise, or a fall, a narrow fall, very small fall, yes, and not a low fall, high or mid fall. That means, yeah, I want to go on speaking, and maybe I'm going to give you a but in English, sino in Spanish, perché in Italian. The appreciation of a deep bond between semantics, pragmatics, and phonology as regards this subject has allowed us to compare English with Spanish and Italian to pave the way towards the acquisition of the suprassegmentals of these, when teaching them as additional languages. Intonation is perceived to be so subtle that a comparison with the student's mother tongue is crucial for them to be able to grasp such intricate concepts as pitch, level, height, and tone. So we have deemed it relevant to refresh the topic in a rigorous fashion, given that the exploration of this avenue may lead to a more complete phonopragmatic interpretation of the issue presented here. And these are the references. Yes. Oh, sorry. Here we are. And now we are back to, this is the end of the presentation, yes? We don't share any.
Thank you. Thank you, Roxana. It's been so thorough and so informative, and you've opened up a lot of issues that are so important, and doing this comparative work is so incredibly necessary. Alejandro has joined us here, as one of the authors of this study. Alejandro, Renato, bienvenido. Pasamos a español ahora. Estás, si querés aportar cómo trabajaron en este proyecto conjunto, algunas palabras hasta que después pasamos a unas preguntas, ¿sí?
Sí, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Bueno, hicimos un trabajo ahí con Roxana y José bastante, digamos, de ida y vuelta, ¿no? Porque de alguna manera ella traía, iba trayendo las cuestiones y yo iba analizando, le devolvía un análisis, volvíamos. Entonces, fue como un trabajo así interdisciplinario. Yo hice la parte más, digamos, hice la parte que correspondía al análisis acústico. Pero fue bastante, muy enriquecedor realmente. Y después, bueno, cada uno aportó su background bibliográfico.
Sí, la verdad, un ejemplo de cómo se pueden hacer estos trabajos colaborativos, ¿no? Entre colegas que estudian distintas lenguas y distintos aspectos de la fonología y la prosodia de las lenguas, como todas estas colaboraciones son realmente enriquecedoras y cómo van abriendo distintos caminos, ¿no? Bueno, gracias por acompañarnos acá y bueno, cuando des tu taller mañana de Prat, ahí seguiremos viendo cómo estas cuestiones se impactan y cómo nos van informando y acrecentando nuestros conocimientos respecto de cómo enseñar fonología y prosodia, ¿no? Realmente adelantos que no hubiéramos pensado cuando muchos de nosotros empezamos a estudiar fonética y fonología, ¿no? Bueno, mejor no decir cuándo, ¿no? Pero bueno, ahora sí, abrimos para preguntas. Si quieren por el chat, no sé, en inglés, en castellano.
Can I say something in English?
Sure.
Thank you, Alejandro. He's a real genius. So tomorrow we are going to listen to your, or we're going to participate, I think, because it's a workshop on the use of Pratt. And yes, and then there's going to be something else. You're going to present something maybe with a group of teachers on Spanish. Here I can see my friend David, who wrote a wonderful, David Rosewarne, yes? He's known, yes, for his, he coins the term estuary English, a very famous linguist who wrote an article for our book. So he's over there. Hello, David. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for joining us, David. A pleasure to see you here. I was wondering, right, because you didn't write your last name there, so yes. So very welcome, right? And so, well, I see that we have a question here. Thanks. You know, we have a question from our colleague Stella Palavecino here. She asks, how different is the stylized fall rise mentioned in this presentation from the one introduced by Jeff Lindsay in his book, English After RP? Yeah. Let's see if you want to take that question.
Can you hear us? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, there's no difference whatsoever because the first scholar who started talking about this was Quaternary. I mean, he gave it this name, and that was back in he wrote his book in 1986, like his first book on intonation. And then he went on in 1997. So Jeff Lindsay published his book in 2019. This is what Graciela is telling me. Or in 2018, yes, or 17. So there's no difference whatsoever. And that means the same thing, yes? I mean, Mary, that's all, hello. you also use this if you want me to say something else about this. For example, English people, not me, I'm not English at all, of course. When you go into a shop and you can't see people, to tell them that you're over there, you say, hello, that means I'm calling you, please come to help me out with what I want to buy. Yes, so this is used. Yes, so it has different, so this is not mentioned by Kratzanen with that specific name, but it is similar to that calling thing. That means that you're using this term because you think that the person may not be near you. Maybe the person may be in a different room. So you start going that way, speaking that way, and so the voice does not go down. Because if you go down, up, goes up, you may lose, you may not understand part of the information. So if you use this level tone information as in churches, also in temples, maybe they started using that 3,000 years ago, yes? That would be the natural way to speak because your voice would be, would carry out, yes? And you would be able to hear the readings and whatever, which was so important, yeah? So it's a kind of thing, yes, that you use because you want to be heard. So, hello, you are somewhere else, I cannot see you, hello. Or Mary, yeah, that would be the intercom, yes, at home. Mary, she's in a different room, yes, so that's calling intonation. Oh, that name was used by other authors as well, for example, Fudge and more authors, yes.
And also mockingly.
Thank you. Yeah, that's teasing, yeah. You'll fall or whatever. You won't fall, David.
Hello.
Yeah.
When somebody says something ridiculous or.
Right, yeah. You know that David is an actor, so, and that's why he can talk like this. He's great at doing these things.
Thanks, Roxana. I think you've given us a lot of examples of how this works. Let's see, are there any further questions, comments? I cannot see any more on the chat, but, you know, apart from all the thank yous, right? And how everybody found it very interesting. Yeah, very clear and enlightening. Definitely gives us, keeps us thinking about how much more there is to do, right? Here, Cecilia Semborain, yeah, indeed. Oh, gobsmacking, thanks, right, from Luciano Masha, right? And the examples help a lot, definitely, right? You provided a wealth of examples that, right, that was Romina. All right, I don't know if there are any more questions, or maybe this is time for lunch here in Argentina and maybe dinner over there, those of you who join us from Europe, right? So remember to tune back in at 2 p.m. Argentine time. That might be 6 or 7 p.m. for all of those of you in Europe, right? So if there are no further questions, then time to go for lunch. And thank you, everyone. And so here, las y los esperamos a las 14 horas, horario de Argentina. Thank you. It's been a great pleasure, and congratulations on your fantastic work. You've been a wonderful team. Yeah.
Thank you. And enjoy your lunch, and enjoy the phonetics conference. This is really thrilling, and it's thrilling to have David again here with us. Graciela is also part of the team. She the
team was made up by Graciela, Jakulj, Roxana, Basso, Alejandro, Renato, and José Durán, who couldn't join us today, but surely will be reading about their work, and we hope you continue, guys, on this road, because it's very productive and very interesting for all of us who are interested in the teaching of foreign languages. So thanks.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Paula. Muchas gracias, Roxana, Graciela, Alejandro, José, que no está acá, pero que es parte también del equipo. Bueno, fue un panel muy enriquecedor. Debo decir que David Rosewan está desde la conferencia inaugural, incluso escuchó la apertura de las jornadas. Lo que pasa es que, como dice David, no nos habíamos dado cuenta, pero yo sí me había dado cuenta porque tenía la cámara prendida. Bueno, so thank you very much, Dr. David Rosewan. Thank you very much to all the team of Phonetics and Phonology of the University of San Martin, who so brilliantly presented their interdisciplinary, interlinguistic work. A todos, entonces, es hora del almuerzo. Nos reencontramos a las 14 en este mismo link. Y el que tenga tiempo y tenga ganas, les recomiendo que miren el concierto del Congreso, porque realmente es precioso.
How would you say that in English, David?
Ahora voy. Así que bueno, nos encontramos a las 2 de la tarde y gracias, Paula, Roxana de nuevo, Grace. Qué lindo verlas ahí a las 2, las extraño. So now it's time to have lunch. In the classroom of the conference, we have the concert of the conference, a concert of honor that is very special because it's piano and saxophone, and there are some very nice piazzolla tangos there. So enjoy, because it's really good. So have lunch, rest, and let's meet again in this same link at 2:00 p.m. Goodbye.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela.
God bless.